I'm a huge Scooby-Doo fan. Always have been. I've seen every episode of every series multiple times. So when I noticed an episode I didn't recognize on streaming, I was intrigued. The thing is, it only showed up when I had my VPN set to route through some obscure server in Eastern Europe. I've since tried to replicate the exact location in Latvia, but it never works the same way twice. It was titled Mr. Jenkins' Final Game, and it was between two other episodes I remembered from the past. The thumbnail was darker than usual, showing the mystery machine parked in front of what looked like an abandoned house at night, with what I assumed was Mr. Jenkins' face on the front. I wondered briefly if I had actually seen it before. Considering I usually use the show as a sleep aid, I figured I'd probably had, just couldn't remember. I clicked play and the usual opening sequence started normally enough, but the colors seemed washed out, almost grayscale. The first red flag should have been that there was no laugh track. Anyone who's seen Scooby-Doo knows there's always a laugh track. The episode opened with the Scooby-Doo van rolling through a heavy fog. Fred was driving, but nobody was talking. Just silence and the sound of tires on the wet pavement. Scooby and Shaggy were in the back, making a gigantic submarine sandwich. That's when Mr. Jenkins appeared, up ahead of the van. He seemed like he just materialized in front of the mystery machine. They nearly ran him over, but were able to brake just in time. He was this skeletal-like man with paper-white skin, stretched too tight over his bones. His suit was perfectly black, not the usual cel-shaded animation black, but a void that seemed to absorb the light around it. His eyes had no pupils, just vacant orange shapes within two black eye holes. The gang got out to check on him, but were confused by his lack of responsiveness. "Mr. Jenkins, are you all right?" Fred asked, as if he knew him from before. Then the entity just turned away from the gang and looked over at the screen, as if he was talking straight to me. His lips moved, but a language I recognized did not come out. It was more like an assortment of random sounds, with a subtitle showing up at the bottom of the screen. The subtitle read, "Your father lied to you. He's not who you think." The gang acted like they couldn't see him say this. They just ignored it and got back in the van, and it cut next to them driving through the fog. However, now Mr. Jenkins was in the back of the van. Scooby and Shaggy were back to focusing on the sandwich, unaware of his presence. He started to tell specific instructions to me. He told me about a series of numbers scratched inside my father's old workbench drawer. I paused the episode right there and ran to check. The numbers were faded but legible. 17, 9, 23, 4. When I returned to the episode, Mr. Jenkins was gone, and the gang was looking for a missing will in an old mansion. The deceased owner had left behind two twin children who couldn't agree on what to do with the property. Mr. Jenkins randomly appeared several more times throughout the episode, each instance delivering more instructions. He told me about a key that opened a small box in the attic, which contained an old notebook. The numbers turned out to be a page number and line reference, and a notebook leading to coordinates. After hours of analyzing, I finally figured out what it led to. It was coordinates for an old river cave outside town, a place my father had always talked about going as a kid, but said that it was off limits now for some reason. Mr. Jenkins' final appearance in the episode made my blood run cold. He was standing alone in what looked like my dad's living room, though rendered in the Scooby-Doo animation style. What you seek lies beyond society's prying eyes, so you must go deep. The episode ended abruptly, cutting to black. When I tried to search for it again, it was gone from my queue like it had never existed. I spent the next few days debating what to do. The rational part of my brain knew this was insane, following instructions from a creepy character in a possibly hallucinated Scooby-Doo episode. But I couldn't get the question out of my head. What if it was true, and there was something my father had been hiding from us all this time? I finally worked up the courage to go. waiting until midnight so that I could sneak past the guard gate at the park's entrance. I had packed a waterproof flashlight and drove out to the particular spot on the river. The cave entrance was just beneath the water's surface, exactly where the coordinates pointed. I stood at the water's edge, my flashlight beam cutting through the murky surface. The cave entrance gaped like a dark mouth below. Then my light caught something white down there, maybe 15 feet deep. At first I thought it was just limestone or river rock, but as I adjusted the beam, the shapes seemed too uniform to be just random rock structures. In fact, one curved piece looked disturbingly like a small rib cage. That's when I remembered, years ago, hearing about a boy who had gone missing in the area, and they never found him. I was about to wade into the water when something else caught my eye. A glint of metal in my flashlight beam. Half buried in the mud and vegetation was an old warning sign. My hands trembled as I wiped away decades of grime. Extreme danger, underground spring, strong downward current, no swimming. The question hit me like a ton of bricks. Was Mr. Jenkins actually trying to help me uncover some family secret? Or was this not about my father at all, and more about leading me there to that dangerous spot in the middle of the night, alone? Whatever lay in the depths below, be it bones or buried secrets, would have to stay there. I wasn't about to become another missing person statistic. As I drove home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see a tall figure in a black suit standing in the road behind me. The key and the notebook went into a locked drawer that night, and I haven't looked at them again since. Some mysteries I've learned are better left unsolved, and as far as that episode goes, if you ever do come across it, do not watch it. I guess I can only hope that others who have seen it before made the same decision as I.